When we're designing videos in Edpuzzle, there's 4 things I like to think about. Can I trim the video to make sure that I'm just focusing on the parts my students need? Am I segmenting and chunking the video in meaningful chunks where I'm asking my students questions? Am I stopping and signaling important information for my students so that they know intentionally what to watch for? And am I differentiating my content for my students through the content or through their accessibility to the content, through read alouds, through oral responses, and images? So once I find my video that I want, I can click on my video and I can click edit. That will allow me to begin editing my video. The first thing I can do in my video is I can cut my video. Let's say that at the end of the video, they go over some like and subscribe things that I don't need. If I just drag that, that will cut it. If there's something I want to cut out of the center of my video, I can hit add cut and I could drag to the place where I want to cut. Or I could hit add cut and I could watch and intentionally click the exact place I want to cut it or type in the time, hit add cut, and drag this to make a little trash can. That will cut out the center portion of my video. So trimming our video is really key. The next piece of what I can do to my video is I can add questions. I want to talk for a second about multiple choice questions. I want you to think for a second, do you think multiple choice questions are an effective way to get students to think deeply? Take a second to look at this quote. So when we think about multiple choice questions, we want to think about, are we writing quality questions? Multiple choice questions can be awesome if we are going beyond our recall questions. So let's think about questions. We really want to move beyond recall into some deeper thinking with inferences. For example, if I'm teaching students about how noise canceling headphones work, and I'm just asking them, well, what do we get when we combine a sound wave and its inverse? The answer to that would be silence. It's directly said in the video. That's different than the question of, based on what you just heard, how do you think noise canceling headphones most likely quiet background noise? We're asking students to take in the information that they heard and infer something, moving beyond just that recall where they say the answer in the video to that deeper thinking. Another really important piece of writing good multiple choice questions is using distractors based on real student misconceptions. If I talk about that question, how do noise canceling headphones most likely quiet background noise? If I'm just saying, oh, they use a special kind of magic, or they just block it, or they don't actually work, it's just a placebo effect. Those aren't going to really be based on real student misconceptions. I have joke answers. I have answers that generally students are just not going to pick. But if I create questions like, oh, they are creating a physical seal that blocks the sound waves from entering your ear, a lot of students, myself included until a couple weeks ago, thought that the way noise canceling headphones work is just by making it really tight in your ear so that you can't hear anything. That's actually not the case. And the way they work is they give the opposite sound wave that cancels out the sound wave of those external sounds to make silence. And so as we're looking at writing really, really good answer choices and distractors, we want to make sure that we're being intentional. Otherwise, the video is just going to feel like busy work, and we're not going to get as much data from it. One way that you can write really solid questions is by using your AI tools to prompt those tools to bring in questions that require depths of knowledge levels beyond a 1, which is recall, to a 2 or 3. You can also prompt your AI to make sure that the distractors represent real, different, specific misconceptions that real students would have. And ask your AI to explain and label what those distractors are and what students who pick that might believe. That's going to be much more valuable than just saying, what did they just say in this video? You can bring in transcripts by going to YouTube and specifically looking for the transcript, which will be under More. So once you click under More, it will say Show Transcript, and you can go ahead and copy and paste this transcript. From there, you can go to your AI tool, you can type in the transcript, and then you can go ahead and select your resource. Make sure that you put your learning objective along with your grade level and go ahead and hit enter. I specifically asked for 5 questions, but what it will tell you is where to place it after. And then you're going to see your questions. A student says that noise canceling headphones eliminate unwanted sound by producing a second sound wave. Which description best explains how the second sound wave reduces the original sound? And it will tell you the examples. Now, anytime that we're using AI to generate questions, we want to make sure that we are okay with the answers, that we make sure that we are editing as appropriate. So how do we add questions to our video? First of all, you're going to see that there might be questions that already exist for your video, and you can decide to keep those questions or to remove those questions. For example, I have a poll question here. How much do I know about this topic? I can decide if I want to keep this or if I want to edit it. Let's say that I want to edit it and say, how much do you know about different forms of government instead of just this topic? And then I can decide how many answers I want my students to pick. Maybe I just only want them to have one single answer. And then I can go ahead and I can hit save. Then let's say that
this means that they make all the
point where I'm going to insert a question. I can copy and paste a question, let's say from my AI or from my brain. And I could go ahead and I can copy and paste the question here and the answer choices here. Again, deciding if I want a single correct answer. Maybe I want to read aloud something for my students. The question here is asking you to identify if Saudi Arabia is a theocracy, a monarchy, or a dictatorship. Remember the differences between those, right? And I've given my students maybe a hint there, or I could read aloud the question. I can also bring in images. I can either paste the URL of an image online, or I can upload an image from my device. If I want to get really precise about exactly where the question is, I can edit the time and maybe say, I want this at exactly 1:45, and it will make that move for me. The final thing I want to bring in is we have all these different question types, but one of them is our open-ended. For open-ended, you can allow audio responses for your students. So if you want your students to say practice speaking, maybe in Spanish, or you want students to read a lot of text, or you just know that you have some students who are really good at verbally explaining their answers over typing them, you could toggle that on. You also can provide feedback for each of your questions, especially when you are in your multiple choice questions. If you want to explain and give some feedback for the answers and say, oh, yep, I see that you didn't get this right. Here's why you might not have gotten this right. That can be a great addition as well. When you're happy with your video, you can hit finish. All of your videos will save in your content. In your content, this is where you'll see each of your videos. If you want to be really organized, what you can do is you can add a folder, and you could create a folder such as forms of government, and you could say this is unit 1 or something like that. And you can select the things that you want to go into that folder and specifically move them into that folder. It will then not show up in your general activities, but it will show up in the folders up top, and you can see all of your folders at any point. I want to provide you with a checklist that you should be thinking through as you are selecting and editing your video. We've talked about them being under 10 minutes, thinking about having an enthusiastic and conversational tone for your speaker, making sure that any video contains not just content and images that are distracting, but is really adding to the audio. Keep background music throughout the video off. Make sure that there's a question every 60 to 90 seconds and that those questions go beyond recall, and that your answer choices for multiple choice are based on real student misconceptions. And then finally, make sure that your video matches your standard or learning objective. You can always cut things out if you need to.